Hi, welcome to the Monroe Institute live event. I'm Ng Qui Sang, the Executive Director and President of the Monroe Institute. And today we've got a really fun topic to talk about, out-of-body experiences, which is a personal passion of mine. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation. And so before we start that, I just would like to share with you some fantastic news. We are going to be launching our new Expand mobile application, and it's going to be launched sometime next month. It's looking really great. We're really happy because it's going to be able to expand the folks that come to the Monroe Institute. And to just share with you a couple of features that we have, it has the ability to play a lot of new sound sessions, Monroe sound science technology that we've developed. It will be built into this app. That's coming out soon. You'll also have the ability to use something we call a timer function, where you can create your own content, combining tones and nature sounds. We will also have a community feature, which is really important to share your experiences and learn from each other. And finally, we'll have a journaling feature that allow you to record what you've learned and share with others as well. So look out, there'll be some more web seminars coming out about the Expand app coming soon, and we'll share a lot more details with you, but we're really excited for this launch. And as you can imagine, behind the scenes, there's a lot of hard work that's gone into it. So great news, it's coming soon. Next, also to share with you the reopening. So to remind everyone, we're planning to open up on August 7th at the Roberts Mountain Retreat, which is the campus up on the hill. And everything is going really well. We've got a lot of new paints, new furniture, freshening up the whole place. We have also installed some technology to help clean the air. So it's looking really good, and we're excited to welcome everyone back. And and then also in October, we are going to open up the Nancy Penn Center, which is the campus down below. And so it's going to be excited. I'm going to be there. I'll just be so happy to welcome everyone back to the campus. And it's looking really great. So things are going very well there. And now let's get to the fun topic of today. So I'd like to introduce Allyn Evans, who is a trainer and our Chief Program Officer at the Monroe Institute, and one of the key trainers of the OBE Spectrum course. And my friend Luigi Sciambarella from England. He is also a great trainer for the OBE Spectrum course and Lucid Dreaming course. And so we're all here today to share our experiences about OBE and answer all of your questions. And thank you, by the way, for sharing all these questions. We had a phenomenal response and looking forward to sharing our knowledge with you. So welcome, Allyn, and welcome, Luigi.
Thank you. Glad to be here. One of my favorite topics, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly a fascinating one.
It absolutely will. So I thought, just to introduce ourselves, maybe if you could share what was one of your first memorable OBE experiences, so folks can get a sense of the different experiences out there. How about you, Allyn?
Okay. Interestingly enough, my first was spontaneous, but the one that I want to explain is the one that came soon after that, and it was a classic style OBE. And I was, and I usually am in my bed when this happens, and I recall going up. That was my perception after I'd had the little vibrations and hearing a little bit of noise, and I go up and out. And then I like to always exit through a window. I don't know why, but, but before I exited, I then looked back because I wanted to, see the body because I'd read about all that. I looked back, there I was, and then I headed out. So that's one of the first. And I don't remember the details of it because I've had, so many since that I'm not sure where I traveled on that first event. But,
all right, thank you. How about you, Luigi?
Spontaneous ones when I was younger, but the self-initiated one, and that really kickstarted a string of them, was when I was at university, and I was in halls of residence, and I'd heard about out-of-body experiences because I was spontaneously starting to have very deep meditative experiences using hypnosis, and that started some lucid dreams. And so I found out about Bob's books, so I read Journeys Out of the Body, and then there was a technique in that, and so I gave that a go, and that didn't really work for me so well, and I thought there's got to be a simpler way of doing this. So I just found myself doing the very classic coming out, hitting the ceiling, turning around. Oh, there's my body. That's interesting. Landing down, and then just walking around the whole of residence and finding that everybody was asleep. So it was like 3:30 in the morning, and and it was just like, who do I tell? This is really exciting, but it's like, yeah, nobody's up. So I just walked around a little bit and then found myself being pulled back to my body. And so, yeah, it was a cool experience, but I wouldn't say necessarily life-changing like some people experience. I've had some other cooler stuff since then, but that's the first one that's really memorable as a self-initiated one.
What about you, Stephen?
Yeah, so, I read Bob's books just as you guys mentioned as well, and I was really inspired by it, and I thought, this is a great way to travel. I'll save on travel tickets, so let's do this. So, I bought the Gateway series. I listened to it every day for about 3 months. And then one particular day, I remembered listening to a CD, falling asleep, and then for whatever reason, suddenly I realized I was conscious. And I realized I was standing in the corner of my basement, and I'm going, this is real. And I know I'm here in the corner of my basement. And then a few minutes later, I looked down at my feet and I realized that there's water coming in, and I could feel myself stepping in water. And that so surprised me that it snapped me back into my body. And I went, oh my God, that was such a strange experience. So, I went back upstairs. I told my wife all about it. Well, the really cool thing was about a month later, we had a heavy rainstorm. And in that same corner of the basement, that's where water was leaking. And for me, that was great because as an engineer, I need proof. I wanted to make sure that this stuff was real. And it was. It was exactly in that corner of the basement a month later. So for me, that was proof. And after that, I was hooked. As I said, it became a big passion of mine to continue to do this because I just find it so interesting. I learned so much from the experiences that it's really inspired me. So, yeah, so that's our experiences.
Well,
Great. Okay.
As you're saying that, Stephen, there are some that you can verify simply because of where they're located. So that means more of this reality, like Luigi, if he had seen somebody outside and he could have identified that person. We've had, many cases of that where people can do that. But then we have a lot of out of bodies that, it's not going to be verifiable because you're on Mars. So,
Yeah.
How do you do it? Or you're
talking to your higher self, and what they're talking about is the meaning of life. It just doesn't relate to the physical world.
Right.
So yeah, it's fascinating. Okay, well, you know what? We've got these great set of questions. How about we tackle them?
Yeah.
So Luigi, I've got one for you.
Okay.
What % of students were able to experience out-of-body experiences?
In the OBE Spectrum program, okay, so we've got plenty of programs at the Monroe Institute, and not all of them are designed for out of body, as you know. But we do get a lot of people who come to Monroe Institute because they've read Bob's book, so they've heard about out of body experiences and whatever else. And so, but some people really, really want to have the classic out of body. So we thought, okay, let's put a program together that addresses that, but also what we understand as phasing and moving into different forms of out of body, which is what Bob Monroe actually came to later in his journeys, right? So he used that radio analogy. So to answer that question directly, what percentage? I would say almost everyone who comes to the program experiences something along that spectrum, right? How many have a classic lift out? That varies. I mean, just this morning, we got a message from one of our participants saying that they'd practiced with the techniques and had that very classic out of body. They might not have had that during the program. And we get things like that. But during the program, 70, 80%, I'd say, would have something that they would say, whoa, that was a strange experience. But what I would also caution is just to not get too caught up in those kind of numbers, because it makes the out of body something alien. It's like something that not everybody can do. Kids do this. The vast majority of people who have had spontaneous ones have usually had it when they were 6 or 7 years old. And then maybe they picked it up later on. Bob Monroe was having them. He started having them when he was 43, right? So, people can have it at different ages, but it's a very natural thing that we can phase consciousness around. And one of the things that really comes out for me in this type of approach is that if you just imagine that this reality isn't physical reality and then everything else is non-physical, and therefore how do I compare that to this one? So how do I verify that I actually went out of body? Just think this is a frequency that you're tuned into right now, and you can learn to turn the dial and listen to other stations, other frequencies where you already reside. And then that is kind of out of body because you're not really here. This is just a phasing, a radio station that you're very, very used to, habitually used to listening to. And so that's why it's so much easier for people to be able to tune into where they already are rather than having to go somewhere.
And also, a key point is consciously aware that
consciously
it
aware.
happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's,
well, and I'd even suggest, you know, in one of the experiences I've had is being able to be aware of multiple selves. So I had an experience where I was on my bed. There was another version of me floating above that and touching my shoulder, and I felt someone touching my shoulder. Then there was a third standing back and watching these two. And then there was a fourth behind me observing all of this and having a good laugh. So, you know, there's just multiples of ourselves. And I think the trick is learning to focus in and be aware that you can do this at multiple levels. And there's multiple cells of us all the time. They're doing their thing. And it's back to what Allyn said, is becoming conscious of that and becoming aware of it and focusing on it. I think that's the big difference.
Yeah, very, you know, just on that, your whatever you call your unconscious, your higher self, total self, and whatever, is processing a ton more data than what your conscious mind is perceiving at any one time. So, you know, I think they measure something like 110 bits of data from your conscious mind and about 2.2 million from your unconscious. You know, you're not going to become conscious of all of that, right? So what you're talking about there, Stephen, is like a bi or a tri-location or whatever you want to call it, where there's other parts of yourself doing things. And it sounds a little bit alien, and I don't want people at home to think that this is like really weird. You know, you can be driving a car and thinking about what you're going to be cooking that evening or something like that. You know, you can split your mind, you daydream half the day. You know, that's what studies are showing. So we split our minds all the time. And it's a very, very natural process. So, yeah, that's what we're playing around with when we learn to consciously turn the dial.
Very cool. All right. So question for Allyn. How many weeks of practice did the average student need before attaining an out-of-body?
well, so because it can happen spontaneously, the answer would be there's not any required amount of practice. Some people understand they need to do some type of practice, but again, it's individual. So we can't really give you a formula. But the beauty of the OBE spectrum, the course we teach, is that we give you lots of different ways to do this. So it's not one technique. Right. So then you walk away with these techniques, and the ones that resonate with you more are the ones that you can begin to practice. So it's not about a number.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because I found in my own practice, there's a technique that works for a while, and then for some reason it stops working, and you kind of need to switch to another technique. So that's what I love about the course, because, by the way, I took the course as well, and I think it's fantastic, but it teaches you a lot of techniques. So you've got a tool chest of which you can pick from when you need it, and feel free to, you know, try out different ones at different times, because it for some reason it stops working and you've got to switch to something else. And I kind of feel like there's a part of me that's getting bored and it wants to try something else too. Who knows? Okay, let's see. Another question for Luigi. What are the different types of OBE experiences?
Well, I think we've mentioned on some of those. So you've got the very classic lift out, which is where you peel out of body, you notice your body in the bed, and the typical reaction is, oh my God, I'm out of body. How do I get back in there? Or, cool, let me fly out the window, which is Alan's favorite for some reason. You know, you can easily use you can fly out the ceiling if you want to, or go through a wall. Windows are fine. Just check that you're out of body first. Otherwise it gets a little bit weird. So that's the classic one. But then, you know, there's the bilocation you mentioned, you know, where you are well aware of your body and also something else happening elsewhere. And so that's more like percentages of your awareness in a different location. So when you start with that, you might be, I don't know, 40% aware of your physical body and 60% somewhere else. You can move almost 100%, if not more, into that place. And then, wow, you know, it's all 3D surround sound and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, you can vary the degrees of that. there's essentially something along the spectrum, which would be like the lucid dream experience, where you're more in your own psyche than what might seem to be an objective reality. So you're dealing with your own inner awareness. That can then phase into going into a more out of body type of experience, which isn't as thought responsive as a dream environment. And then there's things like remote viewing or remote sensing, where you can be well aware of just being here, and there's tons of data on that, where the viewers were just sat in a room, they get themselves in a very simple meditative state, and then they're getting information about a target at a distance, like the thing that the CIA reports were talking about, and so well, the Army reports. So the getting that information, it's like, well, how are you getting that? Because it's not coming in through your physical senses, but it's not a classic lift out of body, and yet they're able to report very veridical information about physical locations. And so they're the obvious ones as far as out of body experiences, I would say. And I mean, we cover all of that in the program as well. But then things like near-death experiences is another far removed one, and I wouldn't recommend you try that one. Step in front of a bus or something. But people do report them. It's just maybe a little bit too permanent. And so there's quite a lot of territory to cover on this.
Good. Well, maybe I'll take a question from Facebook, and this is for all of us. What do you see as the primary benefits of your out-of-body experience? Tell us from your personal experience. What is the primary benefits?
So for me, it's exploration. It's about, I always have the intention of meeting guidance and interacting. I also see it as a self-evolution tool. So I typically don't make an intention of what I'm wanting to do in that experience. And even if I have it, it's like a secondary goal. Because I'm really wanting my higher self, my total self, whomever's in control of this particular experience I'm having, to use it to the best for me in that, in that moment. So that's how I would answer that.
Okay.
Yeah,
how about you, Luigi?
I'd echo that. And yeah, for me, it's, first of all, it shouldn't be possible. In the materialist paradigm, I like to poke holes in that. You shouldn't be able to do it. You shouldn't be able to do it unless it's psychosis, and the fact that we can control it means that it isn't, and the fact that it can bring benefits, that you're more relaxed, you're more receptive, you get a different overview on your life experience, in physical life experience. One of the things that I found really powerful, Bob Monroe talked a lot about, first of all, exploring the unknown, and there's a fear around that. And then there's the fear of death that you can overcome by just knowing that you exist beyond your physical system. But also, for me, the most powerful experiences are when I meet like deceased relatives, when I met my grandma or grandparents, it's like, okay, I'm aware that I'm okay when I'm out of body, but isn't it cool that they're all right, and I've met like a grandfather who I never met in physical reality. He passed away before I was born. So, just making that connection, and noticing that they're changing form as well as the journeys continue, to know that actually death is safe. It's part of a life journey, which is a learning experience. And so, then I know, okay, universe has my back. So what am I here to do? Or what can I explore in this reality now that I know that there's a safety net behind me? So that's what I tend to get from the out-of-body experience. Yeah.
I'd also like to add that there are people, and I'm one of these too, that use it for healing purposes, because when we're in that state, our mind is experiencing it, whether it's happening in this reality or in another. And so then that comes back with us. So there's been spontaneous healings from people having out-of-body experiences. So that would be another, there's like we have a long list, about 40 we share in the program. It's a long list of benefits.
Well, for me, at first, it was just for fun, just to go exploring. I mean, you travel to the sun and you go inside and you meet the energy and the consciousness there, or you travel to Venus. But, after a while, you start to realize, oh, there's something deeper here, because I found it as a great tool to answer the questions that I have. And the answers you get are in a way that you understand. And it also is in a way that you experience it. it's hard to describe. It's like you know it, you feel it, you taste it. It is so real that without a shadow of a doubt, you know this to be the truth. And so for me personally, it's just brought a lot more peace in my life and understanding. And, you know, Luigi, you talked about fear of death. And I tell people, I honestly do not fear dying right now because I've gone out of body so much. Without a doubt, I know I exist beyond this physical body. So I'm not worried about that. And that also brings a lot of peace to my life too. So, you know, these are some of the advantages. But for now, where I'm at, it's more about finding answers to the questions I have and understanding how this all works. That I always find so enlightening. And especially when the answers come in such a way that I go, boy, I would never have imagined it that way. This is so amazing. This is so much bigger and expansive than I could ever imagine. And you feel it and you know it. And it's like, this is true. This is amazing. So
I love it when you have to look up words, like meaning of words, or I'll get something in Latin and I don't speak Latin. And so I try to sound it out. So those are verifications as well.
It is, absolutely. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. So this was a question more around, you know, do we have any research around our claims and how do you tell that these experiences are subjective or objective? And if you don't mind, I'll take this one. Okay. So to share with you, it is a passion for us. It's the reason why we call our technology Monroe Sound Science, that there's research behind it to prove that it works, to see that it's effective. So part of that is we have partnered with the University of Virginia and the Department of Perceptual Studies. So Ross Dunseat is our Director of Research. He works there. He also works with the Monroe Institute. And the exciting thing is that Ross is conducting several studies on our campus. In particular, we have a program called the Discovery Program, where actually, you know, you go through the different exercises, we connect you to EEG machines, and we can actually see when these shifts occur. So, you know, Ross was showing me some of the information. So when people say, you know, I went out of body or I got a remote viewing hit, you can see a shift in the brainwaves. And what's exciting is that they're seeing some consistent patterns. So Ross is actually working on a paper right now that we're hoping to get published fairly soon that will show these results and show that, hey, here is the pattern we're playing. Here's one person reported an event and look at the change in the brainwaves. So and this is really exciting too for the participants because, you know, say, I believe that this is real, but oh my God, the EEG is showing me that it's real. So we're very excited about that. It's coming out soon. But we also have decades of people studying what we've been doing at the Monroe Institute. And so I invite you to take a look at our website as well. You can read some of the articles there. I personally, when I first came to Monroe Institute, I was one of those people that read all those research articles. And I thought, okay, I can see there's data here. I can see there's actual studies. And so this must be real. And that convinced me to come to the Monroe Institute. But that's very important to us. We want to make sure that this is real and prove it. So definitely that's something we're working on and more papers to come. And I don't know, anything else to add on that one, guys?
Yeah, just the thing that, you know, you can always verify it compared to this reality because it's like trying to compare one radio station to another one. And you might just be out of phase of it. You know, so like, for instance, how do I verify independently, objectively that I met my grandmother? You know, there's just no way of doing that unless there was some information. She tells me where to find some long lost family heirloom or something, you know. That'd be cool, but, you know, I never went there. People have done stuff like that, you know. That's why I kind of joke about it. But it is, you know, things like that do happen where there's independent information or, you know, that you meet somebody and they tell you that, hey, you might want to go get a test because, you know, and then they get themselves checked and they have an illness or something, you know. So you get really verifiable things. But you can also get stuff that you just think, I have no idea how I check this. And that doesn't invalidate the experience. Not everything has to be measured to this level of reality. That's one of the things that I've kind of realized in the experiences that I've had. And also, you know, that people who have these spontaneous experiences can absolutely be pigeonholed as being, you know, having hallucinations and delusions and so on, and might even end up on medication, you know, and really because they're not conforming to somebody else's standard of what reality is. So I would kind of, it's great that we're getting this kind of data, and let's keep doing it and you know, research more of it. And I think the Monroe Sound Science is phenomenal opening up these non-local experiences, non-local consciousness experiences. And at the same time, whatever your subjective experience is, that's your reality. Is it of value to you? Can you integrate that in your life somehow? Is that information testable, and does it feel joyful when you have these experiences? Mm-hmm. This is also veridical information, because does it improve my life in some sort of way by having it? That's a test. Right. During this pandemic, I've been in lockdown. Sometimes I've gone out of body just to get out of the house. Arrest me, try it. I can't be locked down. It's like, yeah, prove that. It's like I don't think I've touched anyone. So no masks needed. So that has a fun aspect to it. I think, oh God, yeah, that's great. I can get a bit of breathing space. So but can you put that in a report that gets peer reviewed? Probably not. So there is this kind of validation argument that we hear quite a lot, and certainly my background is quite scientific. So same as you, Stephen, I read a ton of stuff, and also had a bunch of experiences which just don't fit that particular measurability tool. But every experience is valid.
Well, actually, another question I see coming up from the Q&A, and this is also came up in the questions people sent us, it's what frequencies do you associate with out-of-body experiences? What are your thoughts on that, Luigi?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, obviously with Monroe Sound Science, we're playing around with frequencies and getting for the benefit of those who don't know about frequencies in the brain and whatever, your brain's got 86 billion neurons all humming their own tunes all the time, and you can measure that electrical signal from each of those. It's a very small signal, but you can amplify it with an electroencephalogram. And so your brain right now is operating in cycles, electrical cycles that are going through. We call that hertz, cycles per second. And if you're paying attention to what we're saying, you're not falling asleep or anything like that, then you're hovering around a low beta, high alpha frequency, 13, 14 cycles per second. Now, what we find is that if we can start to slow down the brain waves, this is the cool thing, right? So it goes in two directions, right? The classic was that originally, with binaural beats and especially, we would go down to like the delta theta boundary. So 4 to 7 cycles per second. So you're not quite asleep. So we enter what we call the focus 10, a mind awake, body asleep state. Your body goes to sleep. You might even notice sleep paralysis. You can't move your body. Some people find that unpleasant, but if you know you're doing it, then it becomes a lot easier. And then, but your mind's alert and can then move into an out-of-body space if you want to. But then we've also noticed that we can go completely the other way. And a lot of this research came from studying monks who had been meditating for decades, and they would enter these portals of gamma synchrony. So they wouldn't just sit in gamma, but gamma's a really high frequency. You're talking like 40 cycles per second plus. You can't effectively make that with binaural beats. There's a tech limitation to it, because otherwise your brain hears two separate frequencies rather than creating the beat frequency. But with Monroe Sound Science, we can. And what you were talking about there in the discovery program uses a lot of this gamma synchrony. So, but the reports are different then for the out of body. Some have the very classic out of body. A lot have the bilocation. So rather than when you go down low in the frequencies, people start to feel quite spacey sometimes, especially when they're not used to it. They either fall asleep, or what we call a click out, or they float off somewhere else. They might find it difficult to retrieve information of their experiences. But when you go the gamma end, they can have those experiences, but know that they're here in their body. And it's almost like the 80-20 rule, but with the consciousness exploration. 80% of you is out there, 20% is still with your physical body. And you can bring back that information and apply it immediately, make adjustments, maybe write a few things down, and then get back into that experience. So this gamma synchrony seems to be really, really interesting in terms of this non-local consciousness of experiencing these expanded states. But that doesn't give you the experience, right? You know, that's like taking you to the party. You've still got to go in there. You have your own intention. You have your own drives and whatever it is that you want to experience and why you want to experience it, the motivations. And that will then lead to a particular experience. So it's not that the tones give you experiences. That would be very reductionist and materialist to think that. Yeah,
right.
It's not enough that your brain does something. You're more than your brain. You're more than your physical body. So you've got to go and enjoy the party.
And
it is.
We have spontaneous out of bodies, which are no frequencies at all. You know, so
that are being played in.
Yeah, I mean, I really look at it as training wheels, right? We've developed some tools that help you to train you to get you into that state. But ultimately, our goal is that you take off on your own. You do this by yourself. And really, that's the truth, is that we do this by ourselves. And we're really here to help guide you and train you. But hey, once you've got it, go to fly wherever you want to go and have all the freedom in the world. But speaking of freedom, actually, Allyn, another question that's come up is, how do I handle my fears around an out-of-body experience? Because I hear this question quite often too.
Yeah.
So how would you guide someone with that?
So in the OBE Spectrum program, we go over this in great detail, and we teach about the reball, which is the resonant energy balloon, and how we can work with our own energy to do that. It's also intention. Intention is such a powerful, powerful tool. And then also the recognition of what is considered negative. Bob talked about in his books, having running around. Luigi, I love your explanation of it. Like he's got his hands over there screaming, like, trying to get away from whatever. And he realized eventually that it was his own, personality that he was processing, or something that was subconsciously buried that he was working through. Mm-hmm. So it to me, it's all about intention. And I'd love to, Luigi, for you to jump on.
Chip in. I often tell the participants that you don't hear about shark attacks on land, right? So if your mental space, I mean, that would be darn unlucky, right? It's like, I don't even know how you do that. But this is the thing, we hear these questions about, oh, what if I get into a space and I have to do this and protect myself and so on. First of all, repeated exposure reduces fear. Right. So do things, baby steps. That's one of the really cool things about what we're trying to do with the app as well. We're not holding back. We want people to go and play, develop techniques that allow them to facilitate safe movement into these spaces, but not safe because those places are unsafe, but because our fears can be projected into thought responsive environments. So it's a bit like when we talk about sleep paralysis. If anyone's experienced sleep paralysis, sometimes people can be like having the classic UFO experience. They're led in bed, it feels like something's holding them down, and then a gray comes in. It's like, oh my God, right? that because they're paralyzed and they can't move, right? And back in the day, like rewind 600, 500 years ago, there was like succubus and incubus and all these kind of demons coming in the room, and you will subjectively experience that. You might not want to talk to anyone about it. Kids experience that, and then they tell their parents, and the parents really freak out. Maybe even consult a psychiatrist for them, right? So, these are normal experiences because your fears are being projected into a thought responsive environment. And then it says, oh yeah, that's what you're creating. So here, have some of that. and so you're afraid of your own shadow, right? So one of the key things here is preparing the ground so you know that you're safe, that if there are things that are bothering you, work with those first, relax deeply, like you were saying, Stephen. Relaxation isn't just this thing that's a springboard into these states. It's the technique. If you can completely just resolve everything, just dissolve, resolve, just relax completely, allow yourself to be in an open, receptive state, your vibration is then different. There's not going to be anything that can cling to you and attack you and do anything because you know that you're safe in this space. And actually, although you identify with this body that's observing an environment, the greater you is all of that. Yeah. Yes. You're not separate from any of that. And, this was why, like, Allyn and I, we were teaching spoon bending. It's why you can do that, because you can connect with it. There is no spoon. It all is you, right? So then it's splitting off and playing the different characters, like, Stephen, Allyn, myself here, everybody else at home and so on. But that consciousness is one thing. And that's what we're all coming from. So there isn't... Yeah. there isn't this thing that you have to be afraid of. But if you feel fearful, then that's where you're going to take into that state. So I would recommend that you work on that. And we've got a ton of exercises that do that, both in the app and all our programs and so on.
The programs, all of them. Yeah, and
that's
really.
I think the other.
I was going to say, what I'd like to say is that you can just go, hey, I'm done with this. I want to be out of this experience. You are in control.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to add too, through the experiences, I've come to realize I'm being guided. And so many times I have this sense like I'm a little toddler wanting to go and explore going down the stairs. And someone just gently comes along and goes, well, come on over this way and keep you safe. And so I've come to recognize that presence and trust in it. And they've always been there to guide me. And I'll say personally, I've never encountered anything negative. And I think it helps to go in with the intent of having fun and learning something new. So I've just never seen that dark path. But the intent is important, just back to what you guys were saying. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And that negative thing that we judge as negative, as Allyn was saying, it can be a part of ourselves that we need to explore more deeply. Right. So it starts with self-empathy and then extending that to something else. It might be a part of yourself that is really creative as well, but we've denied it. We see it as negative because, oh no, I'm supposed to be doing maths and science, but this is your artistic side. Oh, don't want to touch that. I don't want to show off with my creativity or whatever it is that you may have been told or told yourself when you were younger. So you abandoned that part of yourself.
Right.
So it might be a part that just wants to come and say hello and hey, let's embrace, let's reintegrate. So negatives can become positives very, very, very quickly.
So the little creature running around with crayons and screaming at you, that might be your creativity.
That might be your creative part. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and that's the thing. It seems to me that it is a tool for exploring and learning. So if something's coming at you that doesn't make sense to you, then I would suggest look back at it and say, why are you here? What am I supposed to learn from you? And it's amazing how the information then just flows. Sometimes it's almost like it's coming to you to get your attention, pay attention to this. This is something we need to deal with. So just ask, why are you here?
Yeah. Another thing you can do is say, please show yourself in a different way. This is scaring me.
Yeah, you've got my attention. Now reveal yourself in a different way or something like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Luigi, a question for you, because you're kind of the lucid dreaming guy. People are asking about what's the difference between a dream and an OBE, and we covered it a little bit, but I think this comes up quite often.
Well, so technically speaking, an out of body means that you are not going into your own personal psyche, but you're extending to the wider reality, and therefore you go beyond your skin line, your skin boundary, and explore something else. So maybe the environment is a little bit less malleable, especially if you stay on this level of reality. If you find yourself phasing to something else that's a bit more thought responsive, we cover that, like belief system territories and so on, then that's still out of body, but it's, you're entering a bit more of a gray area. In a lucid dream, you're very much in your own personal psyche to begin with. You can absolutely connect to the collective, and the wider reality through the dream space. But to begin with, you're in your own headspace. And so anything that you encounter is a part of you. The whole environment's a part of you. And there's no separation. So, everything has a metaphorical representation for you, and you can learn more and more about yourself. So if you treat anything badly or afraid of anything that have a nightmare type of thing, that's all about information of what you can learn in that moment. With the out of body, maybe, you can meet somebody else and they can share information that just isn't part of your immediate personal psyche, and therefore it has an energetic difference. And I also notice, because I do a lot of meditation, so I notice, like mindfulness, I notice what the body energy feels like now, what the weight, what the shape of my body feels like in this reality. And that feels different when I'm in a lucid dream, because you're still a body. So that the energy body of a dream feels different to the energy body in an out-of-body experience. And this is also one way to know that you've shifted phase, essentially. So there are plenty of differences, but there's also, it is a spectrum. So there's gray areas in between. And You know, sometimes people meet deceased relatives, or they get a remote viewing target. They can know about the past and the future from a dream experience as much as they can from an out of body. So there are things on the fringes that don't make it such a clear-cut experience. Yeah.
Makes sense. And I mean, I think the other thing too to share, I've experienced going from a lucid dream to an out of body and back again. So, you know, there's no sort of demarcation point. This is all, as you say, a spectrum, and you can move in between these. And why not? That's just the freedom of exploration that we have, right?
It sounds alien, but you do that all the time. You know, when you're daydreaming, where did you go compared to where you are right now when you're back in the room?
Right.
You know, where did your feet just go? Now everyone recognizes that they've got feet all of a sudden. It's like, well, what moved, right? It's the same thing that you're moving around. It's you're noticing. It's what we call awareness, you know, and this is what you move around in these states. So there is a part of you that is already that broad perspective expanded in these states all the time anyway. And we can tune into that now, you know, it doesn't require that you're doing any special technique for that. But this reality is such a constraining experience that, you know, with what we get as information through the physical senses, that it kind of locks us here, which is why in the exercises, we often invite people to close their eyes, make themselves comfortable in the room and so on, so that there's less competition that constrains them to be here. So that's where that relaxation and so on comes in, but it's not required. I mean, you know, people have accidents and go out of body. You know, they have a near-death experience in extreme stress, so that can also kick you out, right? So you know, there's motivations, intentions, whatever else. Yeah.
We don't advise that one though.
We don't advise that one. Yeah, don't make that deliberate. Don't try this at home, kids.
So, Allyn, the question for you, and I've seen this come up multiple times. It's more around what sort of environment I need to create. You know, can I have out of bodies in my own bed, or do I have to have a special room? You know, do I have to eat certain foods? Is there a special time of the day? Can you talk about setting up for an out of body and what you need to do?
Okay, so again, I'll go back to that we have a spontaneous out of bodies. So that pretty much tells you that there's not anything that has to be done to do this. I also at one point gave up caffeine because someone told me it was interfering with my experience. Yeah. I fell asleep in a program. I fell asleep all week and decided, no, that's not for me. And I'm back with caffeine. There's not anything about diet that I have seen. People who eat meat, people who are vegetarians, people who are vegans, any other type of lifestyle, they also are successful. I don't know, Luigi, has there been a study that would look at that?
No, but no, sorry. Yeah, carry on.
Oh, that's okay. And so, yes, it's just a matter, in my opinion, it's a matter of learning tools. If you're not having spontaneous, learning tools, ways to do it, then the intention, also practicing that being conscious while you're in experience. And that's what our Focus 10 level is really good for, which is what Luigi already mentioned, mind awake, body asleep. And then just the intention, and imagination. And Luigi and I spent a lot of time talking about imagination, because it can really start there, you know, with kicking off a lucid dream or a experience, even in a meditation with projected consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagination is your vehicle, you know, because how else are you going to communicate symbolically to something that doesn't really use words? You know, that broader part of you that speaks symbolically. And it can use words, of course, because that's symbolic language as well. But it's not the only way of perceiving. And it doesn't just come through the visual field. It can be all of your senses and more. You know, there's things that you intuit. A friend of mine, Bill, refers to imagination as the sense organ of possibility. And I really like that. You know, it's another sense organ that you can use to go out of body. And a lot of people then say, you know, are we making this up? Well, yeah, to begin with, of course you are, because you're creating a container for the experience to then start filling in. And you know, that's what we're using. What else are you going to use, right? So, there's a lot that we can bring in, really.
Well, we're almost running out of time, so this has been a lot of fun. So, Allyn, maybe you can quickly tell us a bit more about the courses that are coming up, because there's a lot of interest I can see in all of the questions coming in.
Okay, so we do have, Luigi, you've got one coming up virtually, the 17th of July?
Yes, 17th of July, OBE Spectrum. If you want to know about gamma synchrony states, get on that. different techniques that we'll be covering, and yeah, OBE, classic phasing, astral projection, lucid dreaming. Yeah. Hey, I'm sold. I'll do it. Yeah, that's coming up very, very soon.
Yeah, and that's with Fred Reibel, who will also be training.
Fred's amazing. Yeah, looking forward
to it. And then we've got, this one's already full, but we'll tell you about it. It's in August, and that's the second week that we're open. So we're real excited about that. And then we've got one in October 30th. And that again is Fred and Luigi, and that's residential. And then Fred and I are doing one in Arizona on the December the 4th at Casa. And Stephen, you know a little bit more about that location, if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's really exciting. You know, a lot of folks have said to us, can we open up more locations? So we have worked with the Casa organization to have courses there. It's a beautiful location, and excited to bring more to the West Coast. So we're going to be bringing more of that, you'll see in the future, and even around the world. We really believe in being a global organization, and you're going to see some changes there, us reaching out to more locations and bringing it closer to the folks that they want it. So we're excited about that. So yeah, Allyn, thank you very much. Luigi, thank you very much. As you can tell, we could talk about this for hours.
Yes.
And by the way, that's one of the things I enjoy when I go to the residential programs is, you know, after the exercises, sitting around dinner and just chatting for hours about these techniques and processes. So looking forward to that. And I know you guys are going to have a great course coming up. Thank you for everyone that joined us. This is wonderful exchange of information. I hope you've learned something new out of this. And finally, thank you to all our donors that helped to make this all possible. And have a wonderful day. Have fun exploring. Fun is the key thing. And, you know, this is just a wonderful topic. And best of luck out there. And hopefully we'll meet you all soon on campus.
Would love to see you.
Yeah, thank you.